I Believe in Life. Written by Syam Mohan for Priyal Ginoya. Hi, I'm Priyal Ginoya. I'm the director of Ashwina Enterprises. I was born in a normal farmer family as the only kid for my parents at Bamungam village in Kalavad, Jamnagar, Gujarat. 6 months after my birth, my parents got divorced and my mom left me with my father. From then she never showed up. I was not grown enough to know that I was losing my mom forever. Even though my father was a farmer, he was doing some sort of business in the town far away from my village. Most of the time he would stay there, leaving me with my grandparents, spending very little time with me in the village house. I started realizing what it meant to be alone. My father's parents, Dada and Dadi, took care of me even though they were old and weak. I grew up watching other kids having parents for their purposes, but I had none. I saw kids of my age being guided by their parents. Do, don't do, go, don't go, say, don't say, learn this, don't learn this. Since I had none, I started coping and learning from the people around me. I was like, they are doing it, so do I. He is saying that, then I also said that it had happened to him because of doing that. I was trying to learn from others, which I could have learned hassle-free if I had my mom and dad with me. I spent most of my free time in childhood roaming around and playing with my friends, finding happiness. Finding happiness was necessary for me since I had realized even before that I wouldn't remember any of my grievances if I did so. I even had learned to distract my mind from anguishes by then, and I diverted my mind most to studies as well. Even being a village boy and belonging to a distressed family, I was so enthusiastic and eager to study. And I had the best scores always. I did my basic schooling till 7th grade in a village school near my house with very few facilities and amenities, but still, I was very much interested in studies. My grandparents had to work the whole day on the farm for our daily bread. They would take me with them, 5 o'clock every morning. I would run from the farm to my school when I heard the bell ring at 11 after working there for hours with my grandparents. At 2 o'clock again I would run back to my house for lunch. In the bathroom outside the locked house, my daddy would keep 2 rotis and a piece of jaggery wrapped in a cloth with no buttermilk, which I always wished to have. I would gulp them up and run back to school and stay there till 5. After school, I would wait eagerly for my grandparents to return, so I could have something for my starving stomach. Hence I told my father to find me a better school. He helped me join a boarding school in the town. My marks sustained above 85% in the exams. The school had permitted the parents only 1 visit a month to their children. On every visit day, I got up early and dressed and waited eagerly for my father to come, but he had visited me very rarely, once or twice in a 3-month. As he was too busy with his business. But sometimes he would send food or sweets for me. Mostly it happened on the visit days. I wanted and wait the whole day alone when my friends and their families were having fun together. Then I cried the whole night under my bed sheet. One day even my teacher called my father and warned him that I was having some sort of depression due to the lack of support and love from my family that I had been missing my whole life. But that wasn't enough to change anything. So, I taught myself to stay alone and never to expect anyone's aid in need, realizing the fact that there is no one to support me in this world. I am all alone. During a vacation, I returned to my village home. I was so happy when I saw my family and friends. I thought I could enjoy my whole vacation. But father insisted I go door to door to sell the chilies which were produced on our farm instead of playing. I said no, since I felt embarrassed, thinking that my friends would make fun of me if I did so. My father got up angrily and scolded me a lot as he never had done before. Yet I was reluctant to do so. He took a wooden plank and started beating me. I ran for refuge into the kitchen where my daddy was cooking, to seek help, and then I fell when a whole sack of dal fell all over me. Then after a while, my father retained his tranquility and explained, "We differ from your friends. We never were in a condition where we could enjoy our life. We have to work, so can we live. Never be embarrassed to do any kind of works that will pay you." Even though he rudely behaved, he was trying to make me aware of our situation. I understood my father was trying to make me self-existent. He must have foreseen that I should survive even though he would not be there. I realized that the most priority has to be given to work than anything else. The next day I started selling chilies door to door. I sold them out before noons, so I could play in the evening with my friends. I completed my 10th grade with good marks. I scored more than 85% for every subject. I joined demo classes for both science and maths since I always wished to become a pathologist. In the future I concentrated more on science. One day when I was in my class, a phone call came for me. It said, my father was admitted to a hospital. At once I left my school. When I reached the hospital I saw my father's condition was extremely weak. As per the doctor, he had not been peed for 15 days. In fact, both his kidneys had gone damaged. I stayed in the hospital taking care of him. We got attached then a lot. Those days allowed me to gain my father's love for me. But when love came to my life, money stood staggered, since my father, the only one earning in our family, got bedridden. Some days later my teacher called me on the phone regarding my admission. When I explained my situation, he offered me free classes. Still, I was not in a situation to join the classes as I had to take responsibility for my family. I gave up my long desire to become a pathologist. I decided to do a diploma course in automobile engineering, so I would study and work concurrently. I went to the government college in Surendranagar to study automobile engineering, where I could study for a less amount of fee, but there was no hostel facility. I had to find a place where I could sleep and eat even though I didn't have any money to pay. I found an old Brahmin woman, who I had called Masi. She used to provide her house rooms for rent for the students from other places, and she ran a mess for food. I explained my situation to her. I asked for an accommodation. I told her that I could not pay her then, but later if she allowed me. I told her I would work for her in the kitchen and distribute the food. She agreed to provide me with food but not my stay. There were 3 rooms in which there were only 3 students occupied in one room. For them, she charged 1,000 rupees per head. I asked her if I could bring her more students to stay there for other rooms. She agreed. I went back to college and asked every student there. In the evening I brought 8 students to the hostel. Before she was getting only 3,000 from the only 3 students who stayed there. Now she is going to get 12,000 altogether from all of us, including me. Finally, I got a place to sleep and dine. Since my roommate was from my college, it was easy for us to get along with. My friends Tekas Chauhan, Jayesh Damralia, Jignesh Solanki, Pranav Trivedi, Divyesh Iyad, We were 6 together for 3 years. When they came to know my situation, they competed with each other to support me. For Massey, I was like a son. I helped her with her work and sometimes even took care of her since she was so old. She never asked for money. Even though she hesitated to accept my money, by the end of my course I was able to pay her the amount I had promised. From morning to afternoon I attended my classes, and afterward, I worked in a workshop till 8 o'clock. From 9 to 12 I worked for a local catering service. There I would get enough food for free even if it was the only meal after my breakfast from my hostel. I learned and I earned, but whatever I earned was not enough to pay my father's hospital bills since I had to take him for dialysis once a fortnightly. I studied so hard whenever I had time. I got books to write for free from the charity trust, but textbooks I never had bought. I borrowed from my friend when they went out to roam around. I made notes and assignments of them which I used to study for my exams later. I collected the previous exam questions and even made notes on them. My hard work helped me to appear well on my exams. To finish my diploma I had to submit a project. I designed a car that runs with no fuel or electricity. But to materialize the model, I needed a lot of money, and it became impossible for me. So I designed and developed a new bicycle that can turn around 90 degrees in the least radius, of which both the front and the rear wheels can be turned in any direction freely. I built the bicycle with 500 rupees by collecting old spare parts from 2 scraped bicycles and got welded and painted cheaply. When I submitted the project, both my teachers and other students were astonished about the design and the amount I spent to build it. My project was selected as the best, and for that, I was awarded at the college function in front of all the students and their parents. I finished my diploma successfully with 76%, which wasn't enough to get admission for my further studies in a government college. Since by birth I belonged to the Patel community, which is the general category, where my situation, background, or struggles never count. As I said before, I always wanted to study. I tried to get admission for graduation in a private college which would cost me 1 lakh rupees per annum. I applied for a scholarship and it was allowed to cover 50% of my fees. Being unable to afford the rest of the amount, I gave up the wish for my further studies and I joined as a mechanic in an automobile workshop. When I had been working there for a few months, someone from my village rang me up and asked, why had I given up my studies, and I explained. Then some of my villagers gathered up with support and made me join the private college in the Anand. But then my issue was about my stay in Anand. Being the hostel of a private college, staying there could only be an imagination for me. Through a friend's reference, I went to a hostel nearby. Detailing my situation, I requested a place to stay. Then the warden took me to a bank manager. The manager listened to me, then he went through my certificates. Without any further inquiry, he scribbled his signature on a check leaf, paying my 1-year hostel fees. He also gave me an amount of 2,000 rupees in cash with an offer that he would pay all my future expenses. But I humbly denied the offer by requesting him to meet only my hostel fees. Hence I joined the college and I studied so hard. I did not go to my village on holidays or even vacations. I stayed in the hostel and studied, and I gave the best in the exams and I scored great marks. On the Diwali vacation, I went back to my village house. My dadi gave me some rotis to eat, without the butter spread that we usually have. I asked my dadi, why hadn't she As for her, they had to struggle a lot to hold the grip of their life after I left for my studies. My father had become weaker and my grandparents had gone older enough to work on the farm. So I decided to quit my studies, even though I had been selected by a reputed automobile company from Pune considering my design skills, but had demanded a college degree to join the job that would cost me 3 years and the lives of my family members. I left my college and my studies forever, to feed my family. Never again had I gone back to my college. Not even to get my leaving certificate, and I quit dreaming about becoming an automobile designer. I left the village and went to the city of Rajkot and started working there in a workshop. A few months later I was called back to my village home since my father's health condition had become pathetic. He had changed himself to skin and bones and a motele himself. I stayed with him to give him enough care and worked on the farm for food. But incidentally, my grandfather passed away, and for that, I felt like he had escaped from the agonies. I had to take my father frequently to the government hospital in Rajkot by bus on which rarely we got a seat to sit. So we would sit on the bus floor. The hospital was not able to provide enough services like stretchers or wheelchairs. So I had to take him on my shoulders or arms and climb 2 to 3 floors to show him to doctors, giving tests and reports several times even for a single day. Some nights we had to stay in the hospital lobby floor outside and I made him sleep on my lap. One day my father told me that he had had enough and couldn't take any more, and I realized that shortly I was going to be alone again and forever. A few days later it had happened to me. From the time I had started taking care of my father, we started connecting. The bond had become so strong that his absence pushed me deep down into depression. I felt no meaning of being alive to make me think of giving up life myself. I even tried once but something had stopped me. A thought of a hope somewhere it is hiding near to me. This time to pass, I felt stronger inside to made me become a believer in life. Yes, I believe in life, the only truth that we can see around us. At that moment, that thought was turning the direction of my ship. A few days later villagers came asking for the money that my father had borrowed from them occasionally to support the family, which summed up to 7 lakhs when rounded. My father had never told or complained about his struggles. He never let me know them but was helpless to return. I guaranteed their returns and went to Rajkot to work and joined sales in a car showroom. My only purpose in living had become money. I was so determined that I would make money in one way or another. It made me learn sales techniques in a short time. I started selling cars more than my targets. I never missed a customer who came to me. If the customers were unsatisfied with my showroom's brand cars, I home delivered the car of their demand by connecting other brand showrooms and receiving commissions. I allied with accessory dealers and encouraged customers to buy from them. I made a handsome amount of money monthly from different sources but always felt guilty. But I had no other go. I worked for 6 years like that. I paid off every debt which my father had accumulated. Once I became debt-free I resigned from the job and stopped other related dealings since I had started thinking of becoming a businessman myself. For that I had to learn business. I had to learn how business persons manage business. So I joined as an all-purpose employee in a consumer items manufacturing company. I moved to Rajkot permanently but on rent. I took my daddy along with me. I started working for the company where I joined by reference, filling an open position as an all-purpose support employee on a very low salary. My work there was to carry and deposit money to the bank and get back money from the bank as assigned by the finance manager. For me, there were two purposes for joining the company. One was to support our living and the second was to learn business. For that, I had to observe how businesses and businessmen work, how they develop business strategies, how they handle finance situations, and so on. One day the manager gave me 1 lakh rupees to deposit to the bank. When counted, there was an extra amount of rupees 5,000, which I returned to the finance manager after depositing 1 lakhs. I asked him how an experienced person like him could make such a mistake, and he replied it was a test for me and I had passed. A few months later, the managing director of the company called me to his cabin and asked about me. He asked for my resume and checked it. Hence, I had experience in automobile sales experience. He handed over a file and gave me the extra responsibility of handling the insurance of every vehicle in the company. I organized and automated them, which had been managed manually before, in a way that would notify renewals before expiry dates. The managing director called me again, and again he gave me the extra responsibility of marketing some products, but this time with an appraisal. The product was resting in the stocks for more than 18 months. 2 weeks later, one day, the manager saw a large container come into the company and collect the whole stock together, and I was standing nearby, verifying the stock movements. He explained to me what was happening, and for that, I requested him to wait for me in his cabin. Later I went to his cabin and handed over a check of advance. I said I had made a deal with the Syam Mohan, the biggest retail chain in Gujarat. Till then the company was dealing only with local wholesalers, stockists, and stores. In addition, from that deal, our company was going to get an extra 10% profit than the local deals. Then the managing director said, "Wow." He instructed the department to raise my pay again, and he told me that he was thinking something bigger for me. Then started the Diwali vacation. After Diwali vacation, I went to the company and I met the manager and I said that I wanted to resign. On the Diwali vacation, my cousin came to my house. I shared with him about what I did in the company. He had a startup in partnership with his other 3 cousins which was on lose at that time. They dealt with the online business of plastic kitchenwares and toys. He asked me for support on marketing. I decided to help my cousin and offered that I would work for them for a year, thinking that it would be a turning point in my career, so I would get an entry into the business. I resigned from the job even though the managing director hesitated to leave me since our bond had become so strong. He was like a guru for me. For him I was like his beloved disciple. I convinced him and he let me leave with blessings. I joined my cousins. I had to start from scratch since they had a capital of only 1 lakh of rupees and a few basic machineries, and they were selling products for local online dealers only. I told them to invest the amount on some products and I went for marketing. I made vendorships with private limited companies, offering them that I would supply any product or their demand at the best price they could get. I brought orders and advances to the company, and that amount we reinvested in new machines and produced the products and we supplied. The company grew from 1 lakh to a value of 70 lakhs in costing in less than a year. And then I left the company to start my own company, Aswina Enterprises. I started my own business. I believe this is the beginning, and I know it is going to be hard, and I'm ready for that, because I believe in life.